she really liked clothes. She bought new clothes all the time, and she really liked doing her makeup and stuff, and her hair was like her most important thing to her, really, her hair. And she also really loved her dog as well.
Her stepbrother?
That she was kind of scared of him, and that he made some comments about killing her in the past, like quite a lot. And I think the last of the comments was last year, like at the end of last year.
The bags were in a shed, sealed, stacked, arranged in neat rows along the back wall, the way you'd organize something you planned to keep for a while. No mess, no struggle. No sign that whoever put them there had been in any kind of hurry. Officers in protective suits worked slowly, the way you do when you already suspect what you're about to find. They opened the first bag. Inside were the dismembered remains of a 16-year-old girl. Her name was Rebecca Marie Watts. Everyone who loved her called her Becky. And by the time that shed door opened on the 3rd of March 2015, she had been missing for 12 days. Here's the part that's hard to sit with, the part that should make your skin crawl a little before we've even started. The person who killed her had spent most of those 12 days standing next to her father, searching for her, comforting him, telling him it would be okay. He knew exactly where she was the entire time. This is the story of how that happened, how it almost went unnoticed entirely, and how one single camera, pointed at one ordinary checkout counter, ended up being the only thing that brought Becky Watts home. Rebecca Watts was born on the 3rd of June, 1998, in Bristol, England. Small, slight, instinctively shy in the way some kids just are, the kind of person who didn't perform for strangers, who saved her real self, her humor, her warmth, for the handful of people she actually trusted. Her family had a phrase for her. They called her a tornado, a hurricane, and a sunbeam, all rolled into one small person. That warmth wasn't something she handed out for free. You had to earn it. And the people who did earn it knew exactly how lucky they were to have it. Her early life wasn't simple. At 3 years old, Becky was placed into foster care, under circumstances her family has never laid out publicly. And frankly, none of us are owed that explanation. What matters is what her father did next. Darren fought for custody. He fought hard and he won. He loved her, in his own words, ferociously enough that losing her years later would feel like having his heart ripped out and stamped on the ground. For a while, it was just the two of them in St. George, Bristol. Red brick terraces, quiet streets, the kind of unremarkable neighborhood where nothing is supposed to happen. Then Darren met a woman named Angie. Angie had a son from a previous relationship, 12 years older than Becky, a young man named Nathan Matthews. Two families blending into one. It looked, by every outward measure, like a happy ending. It wasn't. Becky's teenage years weren't easy ones. She was bullied badly about her weight, and by 2011 that bullying had
minimum 33 years, 17 years for Shauna.
Still not enough for him or her.
Do you think he should ever be released from prison?
No.
Why not?
Because it wouldn't be safe for like teenagers or anyone. There'd be 61 when he gets out and they'll still be looking for teenagers because it's gone in the head.
And the two of them became inseparable, nicknamed by Becky's family the Three Amigos. By 2014, she was enrolled in college, working toward her GCSEs, dating a boy named Luke, turning into someone genuinely fashion-conscious, the kind of girl who always looked put together no matter the occasion. Luke would later say he never even knew about the anxiety, about the hospital, about any of it. To him, she just always seemed happy. She had survived something most teenagers never even talk about. And she had come out the other side of it whole. That's worth sitting with for a second, because it makes what happened next so much harder to live with. On the 18th of February 2015, Becky went to a Skittles night at her local rugby club, a small thing, a teenage thing. She stayed over afterward with a friend, relaxed and cheerful by every account anyone has given since. Her friend Adam would later describe those hours simply. They were just messing about, he said, really laughing. The next morning, the 19th, Becky got dropped home around 8 a.m., planning to catch up on sleep. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that looked, from the outside, like the beginning of anything at all. She had no way of knowing what was already waiting for her inside that house. At 11 a.m., her stepmother Angie left for a hospital appointment. Before she left, she did something small and ordinary, something she'd probably done 100 times before. She left a key outside for someone who was coming to visit. That someone was her son, Nathan. At 11:03, 3 minutes after Angie's car pulled away, Becky sent a text message to a friend. Routine. Unremarkable. She did something small and ordinary, something she'd probably done 100 times before. She left a key outside for someone who was coming to visit. That someone was her son, Nathan. At 11:03, 3 minutes after Angie's car pulled away, Becky sent a text message to a friend. Routine. Unremarkable. The kind of text you send 100.
And spoke to her the night before.
It was in the day before. I spoke to her on the phone and she was really happy, and I was texting her the night before, and she was just happy and just a normal self.
Did she
100 times a week without thinking about it at all. It was the last anyone would ever hear from her. What happened in that bedroom over the following hour was pieced together later, painstakingly, through forensics, phone records, CCTV, and eventually Nathan Matthews' own words under questioning. He arrived carrying a bag. Inside it, a stun gun, handcuffs, tape, a mask. Becky was suffocated. She fought. Prosecutors would later tell the court she fought harder than he expected. She was stabbed 15 times. Matthews would later claim he only meant to frighten her, to teach her.
Police interviews, Matthews always claimed Becky's death was an accident. In reality, he and his girlfriend were planning to kidnap her for sex due to a fixation with teenagers.
List, while 20 minutes away, a family was beginning to fall apart. They dismembered Becky's remains in the bathroom of their own home on Cotton Mill Lane. It would later take a team of forensic specialists working carefully to reconstruct what that process actually involved, because the two of them had done what they could to make sure no one ever would. They packed what remained into bags and boxes. They drove those bags and boxes to a neighbor's shed and stacked them along the back wall. The same arrangement officers would later describe as deliberate, almost careful, as though care were a thing that still mattered to either of them by that point. And the entire time, 20 minutes away at Crown Hill, Becky's family had absolutely no idea any of this was happening. Her phone was still in the house, her laptop, her tablet, no money taken, no clothes packed, no note. She hadn't run away, and everyone who knew her could tell that immediately, on instinct, the moment they noticed she was gone. And still, it took until the 20th of February for her to be formally reported missing. What followed was the kind of thing that for a moment makes you believe in people again. A hashtag Find Becky reaching 2 million people. Over 100 volunteers combing parks and riverbanks in the cold, checking under bridges, calling her name into hedgerows that had nothing to give back. 6 police search teams out every single day, working the case with everything they had, treating it from the start as exactly what it looked like. A missing teenager who had vanished without explanation. Darren went in front of cameras and could barely finish a sentence. Becky's grandmother had to step in and finish it for him, her voice steadier than his only because someone needed to be. And the entire time, Nathan Matthews stood right there with them, in the search teams, in the family photographs released to the press, in the living room where Darren sat with his head in his hands. He gave an early statement to police, said he'd heard the front door slam that morning and simply assumed Becky had gone out. A small, forgettable detail, delivered without hesitation, without a flicker of anything that might have given investigators a reason to look twice. They believed it, because why wouldn't they? He was family, he was helping. For 9 days he sat inside his stepsister's disappearance, not as a suspect, but as a grieving relative, helping organize search routes, comforting his mother, appearing on camera alongside the rest of them, asking the public for any information that might bring Becky home. He already knew exactly where she was. He had known since the moment it happened. You have to wonder what that actually looked like from the inside of his head. 9 straight days of it. Watching his mother fall apart in real time, unravel a little more with each search that came back empty. Watching his stepfather beg a camera on live television for his daughter to come home, his voice cracking on a name Matthews already knew would never answer, and saying nothing, not a flicker, not a slip, not one moment across 9 days where the mask came anywhere close to cracking. That's not panic either. That's control. The same kind of control it took to plan a kidnapping in advance. To pack up a bag with a stun gun and handcuffs and tape, to stand in a hardware store the morning after a murder and calmly select a saw. What finally broke it open wasn't a confession. It wasn't a slip in an interview room. Wasn't a contradiction a sharp detective caught him in. Wasn't a crack in 9 days of performance. It was a camera, his own face, time-stamped, buying a saw the morning after she died, on footage nobody had thought to pull until the investigation widened far enough to reach it. On the 28th of February, Matthews and Shauna were arrested. Rearrested days later, this time on suspicion of murder. And on the 3rd of March, acting on Matthews' own confession, police finally opened the shed in Barton Hill, and that's where we started. The trial opened at Bristol Crown Court on the 6th of October 2015. Matthews admitted to killing Becky, admitted to hiding her remains.
Can you tell me then, Nathan, because if we work through what you told us in this written statement, this idea that you had...
Obviously, I think you wanted more detail,
yeah.
was it?
Yeah, I do. There are a couple of ways...
Are you gonna have to read that statement?
No. There are a couple of ways we could get around this.
Obviously, I don't want that to be read to someone.
I don't want to read this out in full again, Nathan, but what I wanted to do was get some more detail from you about things that you've said in it.
Right, what was the question again?
About the idea that you got. You said it might have been something on TV or you had a dream.
Well, obviously I came up with the idea to scare her, because, like, to try and basically make her more appreciative of life, so she'd be more appreciative for other people. She'd be like, wait.
So tell me what you thought you were going to do. What your plan was.
Obviously stick her in the suitcase. Obviously, put tape around her mouth so she wouldn't make any noise.
There was no version of events left for him to deny on those 2 points. The forensic and digital trail had closed every door but one. So he denied murder instead, entering a plea of manslaughter, his account being that the kidnapping was only ever meant to frighten her, that the stun gun and the handcuffs and the tape were props in a scare tactic that had simply gone wrong, and that the killing itself had been an accident. Shauna denied everything, all of it, from the start, despite her DNA sitting in that shed alongside his. Prosecutor William Mousley laid it out for the jury in plain, unadorned terms. Becky had fought for her life. She had not gone quietly, and the 15 stab wounds told their own story about exactly how hard that fight had been. And what followed afterward, Mousley said, was not panic, but a deliberate, carefully planned cover-up, executed methodically, in stages, over days, by 2 people who had clearly thought through every part of it, except the part where they'd eventually be caught. Becky's mother left the courtroom in tears, as he described it, unable to stay for the details a jury needed to hear in full. The case against the 2 of them rested on 4 pillars, each one closing off another possible escape route for the defense. CCTV placing them at the supermarket and the hardware store, buying the saw, the cleaning products, the batteries, all timed precisely around the killing, hour by hour, almost to the minute. DNA, both of theirs, recovered from the shed beside her remains, undeniable and unshared by anyone else. Digital evidence pulled from their devices, the searches, the messages, the pattern of interest the prosecution said had built for months before that Thursday morning. And expert testimony stating plainly that the level of dismemberment likely required 2 people working together, methodically, over time. Not one person, alone, in a panic. The defense argued manslaughter, leaned hard on the idea of an accident, a plan that spiraled somewhere nobody intended. The jury didn't buy a word of it. It took them 3 hours and 27 minutes to reject it entirely. On the 11th of November 2015, the verdicts came back. Matthews, guilty of murder. Shauna, guilty of manslaughter. Both convicted on additional charges as well. Conspiracy to kidnap, perverting the course of justice, preventing a lawful burial, 4 words for what 12 days had actually cost. At sentencing 2 days later, the judge wept while delivering his remarks, a detail that says something on its own about exactly what kind of case this had been. He called the killing sexually motivated, called Matthews fixated on petite teenage girls, a pattern the court said had clearly built over time, in private long before anyone close to him had any reason to notice. Said Shauna had been drawn into it by him, complicit but secondary. Matthews received a life sentence with a minimum of 33 years before parole. Shauna received 17. That 33-year minimum is one of the longest ever handed down for a murder conviction in England. So no, this isn't a story about a justice system that went easy on anyone. But there's a detail buried in that sentencing, one line in a much longer transcript, that deserved far more attention than it ever got. The judge noted that Matthews's minimum term reflected, in part, his previous good character. That's just legal language for one specific fact: no prior convictions. Sentencing guidelines treat a clean record as a mitigating factor, even in murder cases. It's built into the law that way, almost mechanically. But sit with what the trial had already shown by that point: a shared, escalating interest in young petite girls that prosecutors said had built over time, quietly, in private, long before anyone noticed. A bag packed in advance with a stun gun, handcuffs, tape, and a mask. A saw purchased before anyone had even realized Becky was missing. None of that happened in a single moment of panic. It was planned, in stages, by someone who had clearly thought about this, in some form, long before that Thursday morning. So when the court says previous good character, what it actually means is something much narrower than it sounds. It means nobody had caught him yet. That's not the same thing as no prior harm. It just means no one had ever charged him for it. The law doesn't always know the difference between those two things. And in this case, that distinction mattered more than a single line in a sentencing transcript would ever suggest. Becky's funeral was held that April, at the same church where her father and stepmother had married, the same church where years earlier a photograph had caught her as a smiling bridesmaid in blue. She was laid to rest privately at Avon View Cemetery. A year later, a wooden bench appeared near her home on Crown Hill. Nothing official about it. Just a place for anyone passing by to sit for a moment and remember the girl who grew up there. Her family said it best, standing outside the courthouse after the verdict came down. She was a beautiful, happy, funny, fierce, caring girl, they said, who made you feel alive just by being in your life. That's the version of Becky Watts worth carrying out of this story. Not the bags in the shed, not the saw on the CCTV footage. A 16-year-old who fought her way back from anorexia and came out the other side joyful. Who made best friends in hospital wards and called them the Three Amigos. Who looked put together and laughed easily and never once let the people closest to her see how hard some of those years had actually been. She did all of that. And then she met someone in her own family who had clearly been thinking about people like her for a long time before he ever touched a doorknob. If there's a single thing this case leaves behind, it isn't really about Nathan Matthews at all. It's about how long someone can stand inside a family's worst moment, offering comfort with one hand while knowing the truth the entire time with the other. Trust doesn't announce when it's been broken. Sometimes it just keeps functioning day after day, search team after search team, hashtag after hashtag, while the person closest to the truth says nothing at all. Thank you for watching up to this point. If this story moved you in any way, leave a comment. It genuinely helps more than you'd think. And if you're not subscribed yet, this is a good time. There are always more stories like this one. Stories that deserve to be told properly.